Hey guys, today we're going to cut some valve seats in the L-head engine. I've got that on the stand over there. I got everything I need on this table to make a successful cut and vacuum test. A lot of you guys were looking to see the vacuum pump. This is just a Thomas. I've had this for years. If you're going to get a vacuum pump, don't get the air conditioning kind. Get a real vacuum pump. This one works real good. And from the vacuum line, I teed in a gauge. And this has a little bit of Vaseline on it to make a good seal. And you'll see when we vacuum test each valve how this works. But it's just a regular vacuum pump. And we've got some grinding compound or lapping sticks here, stuff like that. This gauge here checks the concentricity of the seat. We want to make sure we have no run out in the seat. And we have the New Way cutters to cut the seats. That's my Jeep set there. It does the L head, it does the F head. And we're going to talk a little bit about the angles I use and why I do it. But first, we're going to take a look at the block here. We washed this up yesterday. The valves are all numbered. This valve, all these valves will stay with the hole that I set them to. So we got the exhaust number 1, intake 2, all the way down. Now I did number exhaust 4 already. The seat is cut. I lapped it in. You might be able to see the ring around there. There's that jumping that I talk about. That's when you know you got a good valve set up. See that jump? You see that all right, Matt?
Yep.
Okay. You know you're good. And I'm going to show you what it's like when we vacuum test that. I'm going to turn on the pump. You watching that, Matt? You got the gauge?
Yep.
Alright, we're just going to put that right on the block. 20 inches of vacuum we pulled. No trick photography there. I'm going to pop the valve up. Okay, put it down. Pulls good vacuum. Now there's no spring on there. There's nothing on there. That's just the weight of the valve, and it's sealing perfectly. That valve is finished, 100% done. A lot of times you can put a valve in. Let me just show you on some other ones here. Let's go for this number 2. You see that? That valve is doing nothing. We didn't cut it. And a lot of times on engines you get from rebuilders that don't spend time on the valves, this is what you'll get. You get leaky valves right from on a brand new engine. You have to take the time, cut the seats properly, and give it a vacuum test so you know it's working. That's a good one. And that one has had no work to it yet. So this is a critical area. You don't want to lose horsepower for no reason. And I'm going to show you how to cut the seats. Okay guys, the first thing that you need good to start cutting your seats, you need a good valve guide in there. You need it reamed properly. Exhaust valves, I use the 375 reamer. Intake valves, I use the 374 reamer. You need different pilots to match your guide. So I'm going to take my 374, I'm going to put it in there, twist it a little bit, and that's ready to go. It's going to guide our cutters. I'm just going to go over this real quick with Matt so you understand what's happening here. All the valves are 45 degrees. Every valve we have here is 45 degrees. This is what a 3-angle valve job means. Your angle on the bottom is 60. Where the valve hits is 45, and then your top narrowing angle is 30. On the early engines, they wanted a 45 degree valve, they wanted a 45 degree seat. So this area here, the valve to the seat is parallel, and what happens is the valve starts getting pushed into the seat, and it always hits here first. So you have a massive leak right here. Later on, in the Willys service manuals, the valve's still 45 degrees, but they're calling for a 45-degree seat angle. So when I use a 46-degree cutter, same 60-degree narrowing angle, a 46-degree valve angle, and a 31 on the top. So what this does, these three angles, that makes the gases flow nice. It's like a radius almost. Now when the valve starts getting pushed down on a 46, it hits at the top and it seals for a much longer period of time. You won't start leaking a valve. You know, it'll seal tight there, and you're not going to lose any any vacuum there or anything. So I always use a 46-degree cutter and a 31 on the top. You could get by with this, but your valves will not seal as nice as using a 46 degree. So I just want to get that out there so you know what's happening. So when we start cutting this, our first cut is going to be with a 60-degree cutter. And that's our first narrowing angle. That rides on our pilot. And we're just going to take a few passes. And that establishes our new bottom narrowing angle. We're going to jump over, and we're just going to tickle it a little bit with the 31 degree. We flip that over and we have our 46 degree. Now the width of that angle there is critical. If it's too narrow, you're not going to lose any heat out of your valve when it seats down in there. If it's too wide, it's going to build a lot of carbon. It's going to keep your valve up, and you're going to have valve leakage. So that's a critical. Everything there, you know, your narrowing angles, they can be as big or small as you need to get the to get the valve to hit in the center. And I'll show you that a little bit as we go. But those are the three cuts we need to make on this. Now I'm going to take some Dykem so you can actually see what we're actually doing with the cutting. I'll put that in there. We're going to let that dry for a minute, and then we'll come back and cut them. Okay guys, we're going to just check the concentricity of the hole we got here. And just to show you, I'm going to lift it up a little bit so you see we have tension on that. Now you're allowed 1/1000th of deviation per inch of valve, but I like to get them real close. We got maybe 0.5 there, not even. So we know that one's good. It's worth testing every hole, because if it's not perfectly round, you're not going to get a good seat. It's critical that it's round. So I kind of did that out of sequence, but let's check and see how our valve is fitting in there. Okay, we're starting to get a little jump, so I think we're pretty close on this one, but I'm going to die it up again and make our final cuts on this. Okay, we just made a pass with the 60-degree cutter. You could see it way down in there. I'm going to come on the top here and just tickle the top with our 31-degree cutter. Just so you can see, we're not really taking a heavy cut there. Okay, you see that right around, you see that, Matt?
Yep.
Okay, that's the 31-degree cutter. And then you would finish up the seat with the 45-degree cutter. Just take a couple there so you can see it. Okay, now we have, come back to this page here, now we have our 3 angles. 31, 46, and 60. And that is a nice ramp for our hot gases. So that's what the 3-angle valve job is all about. I'm going to pull this pilot out. I'm going to glue it up again. It's red, but it's Dykem. I usually use blue, but I think you can see the red better. We're going to take our valve. Smack it down a few times. And check our ring. We splashed because I didn't let the Dykem dry enough, but you can see what you want is your line to be in the middle. And I'll show you better when I lap it in there. But you can tell, you see that guy jumping up and down? It won't do that if you don't have the seats cut right. So we'll clean that up just a little bit. Now with the New Way cutters, you don't have to lap them in. It gives such a nice finish that you actually can get away with not lapping them. But I'm going to lap this one in for you. Just take a little bit of compound. Spread it around there. You don't need a lot. I'm going to drop that in the hole. Oh, that's sticking good. Hang in there. Okay, don't put a drill on there and just spin it like crazy. You just do more harm than good. Just twist it a little bit, turn it, twist it, and turn it. Can you get in on that line, Matt? Okay, that's where the valve's hitting the seat, and I like to have it in the middle or just a hair up. I don't like it down here. So this is just a little bit higher than the middle. And we've got a nice ring around there. And like I say, the width of that, anywhere between 60 and 90 thousandths on your width. You could just check that. You could just check that with some calipers. Right about there. That's about 82. And again, you want this to be about the same. Anywhere from 60 to 100 thousandths would be fine there. And like I say, it's going to pop up and down like that when you're close. And we're going to set up now and vacuum test this one. So because this is an intake valve, your port here goes that way. It goes this way and this way. So we have to block one of these off. So we're just going to use just a piece of polyurethane. We're going to stick it to that, and then we're going to pull a vacuum here. So I've got to run and get some Vaseline to seal that, and I think we got everything we need. So let me get that sealed, and then we'll vacuum test that. Okay guys, we're going to vacuum test our first intake. We got the other intake blocked off right there. Piece of polyurethane. We're gonna block the guide and see what we're getting for vacuum. Okay, we're pulling 22.5 inches. And I'm gonna pop the valve up. Okay, so the intake's got to get a little creative on because that one port does both. But take your time, get that right. We're going to continue on with the rest of the valves. I think I showed you everything that it takes to cut them. Now when I had that first L head block that I was working on before I found out it was cracked, I had put some valve seats in it. You saw that in one of the last videos. And I put some exhaust valve seats. And if you're going to run your Jeep, if you're going to run it in the dirt, or you're pulling a plow, or you're doing something that's really going to stress the engine, you could put in the hardened seats, and you only need them on the exhaust because that's the only area it really gets messed up. And if you're worried about unleaded gas, you don't need the seats. You can add a little bit of lead additive to your fuel, or you could put a little bit of Marvel mystery oil in there. Don't go thinking that you need seats right off. This block was in such good shape. The seats were so nice that I didn't think it was necessary. I talked to the owner of this, Tom, and he said it was going to be an easy driver type of parade vehicle. There's no sense when the vehicle is going to be operated like that to go through the added expense of putting seats in when the block's in good shape. If you need them, you need them, and put them in if you need them. But this doesn't really need them for the way it's going to be driven. And if he puts just a little bit of, like I say, Marvel mystery oil, lead additive, something like that. What the lead did was boost the octane. That was mostly what lead was for, was it boosted the fuel octane. And at 7-to-1 compression ratio, we don't need crazy octane. But what it also did was add a layer of protection between the valve seat and the valve, so it wouldn't damage the valve seat. And like I say, you could put lead in it. Redline makes some nice lead additive. Some guys used to put diesel fuel in there. I don't recommend that. And another popular way of doing it today is just a little bit of two-stroke oil in your fuel. But whatever you choose, if you don't drive them crazy, and like I say, you're not pulling a plow, or you're not running it at high RPM to run a welder or a air compressor or something like that, the original seats will be fine, which is the case in this engine. So you could do your own homework on if you want to put hardened seats in. There's a lot of information out there. I've done enough engines where on this particular Jeep, the way it's going to be driven, I don't believe it needs the seats. So we're going to continue on with the rest of these, and I'll catch up with you in a little bit. Okay guys, I got Matt working on an exhaust valve, and I just want to show you. This is Matt's first go at cutting seats. But if you follow directions and you do it right, his first pass through there, he got maybe 10 inches of vacuum. So we're going back in, we're cleaning it up with the 46. He's going to relap it in there to see where we're hitting on the valve. And just a little bit at a time, to go slow, take your time. Yeah, go pull that pilot out. He's going to pull a pilot out, he's going to lap this in, and we'll see where we're at, and then we'll pull a vacuum again and see if we get a full 20 inches of vacuum. But just take your time, follow the directions I'm giving you here, and you'll come out okay. I'm just going to lightly lap that guy in there. Okay, it's sounding good. I'm sure it's going to look good. And then we'll pull a vacuum again. Okay, we had to clean that up a little bit with the 45, then come the 46, then come back in with the 31. And we're getting 22 inches of vacuum there. So, with just a little bit of instruction, Matt has cut a seat perfectly and is getting good vacuum. So like I say, if you guys take your time and you follow these directions, you can do your valves probably better than most machine shops will. Like I say, I've gotten engines from machine shops where they've just went in there with a 45-degree cutter, ran it around there a couple times, slapped a valve in there, and they say that that's, you know, finished, and then you hook a vacuum gauge to it and you get complete leakage. But here we got good vacuum. We know this valve is going to seal. This is going to be a fine running engine when it's done, and this all starts with little details like this. Hey guys, we got all the valve seats cut and the valves are lapped in. We're going to do one final vacuum check. I've got a little bit of Vaseline all over here because we don't have a good gasket or sealing surface in there. So we're just going to pull them down and make sure everyone seals good. So we know that every valve is sealing good. We know that we're not going to lose any horsepower or anything. We're not going to waste any horsepower on poor sealing valves. This is a step that you could easily do at home. You can buy the New Way cutters. I think they're the easiest to use. You can use a valve grinder, you know, the hand tool with the grinding wheels. And they work pretty good, but you got to dress the stones a lot. I like the New Way cutters. I've been using them for a while. You could find those anywhere at engine rebuilding places, or I think even New Way sells them directly. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of places to get them. And you could do your own research on the 45-degree or 46-degree. I've had better luck with the 46-degree, and I've been using it for years. And like I say, if you follow the shop manuals through the years, they went with a 45-degree valve and a 46-degree seat later on. And that's definitely how I like to do it. So with a vacuum pump, some New Way cutters, and just follow some simple directions that I gave you here today. Get the width of your seat the right width, and the width of your contact area on the valve the right width and stuff, and these valves will last for a long time. There won't be any carbon buildup, there won't be any overheated valves. This is going to be you'll feel the difference when you have all the valves right, or you have all the valves leaking. You'll feel the difference when you're driving the Jeep. It's that big a deal. So this is a place where it doesn't take anything but time and a few tools to get it right. So I hope everybody who is going to try this at home learns something. And remember, they're going to jump again when you got them right. Those are all set. The valves will stay with each hole throughout the the rebuild. They're labeled, and they'll go right back in there. And that's what it takes to cut some seats. And thanks for watching. We're going to end this one here, and I will catch you on the next video where we'll be boring the engine.